we orchestrated that, running out of time. Look, first of all, I've been watching the audience slowly dissipate, so I'm going to liven you up a bit with something that's nothing to do with anything to do with economic development. It's to do with misunderstanding of cultures. And there is one particular person in this audience will know immediately what I'm talking about, and please do not be embarrassed, because I was when it happened. First of all, my father had a bit of a sense of humour. He gave me a name of Klaus Helms when we travelled country schools in Australia, so I got to hide him quite often. But leaving that aside, in the very early 70s, I parachuted into Arnhem for something I can't talk about even today, but nevertheless, I landed on the outskirts of a small community, usually carrying a fair bit of hardware and dressed in all the usual camouflage rubbish, and sore ankles from when I landed in the trees. But nevertheless, I made my way to the coast, and there, coming through as a nice little snake file, was about 12 young Indigenous people, all lively, walking along, but they didn't see me, as they're not supposed to. That's what I'm paid to do. But one of them particularly got very close, so I had no choice, and I stepped out and I said, "Hi." Now, the thing was, a misunderstanding of cultures was not the fact that he saw me and panicked and ran, that the fact he ran through the community singing out Germans, and I couldn't work how the hell he knew my name. Brewa, please stand up. We have a long association. Since that day, Brewa and I have been very, very close, but we keep that one a secret. Yeah. So we have a saying, too much Gumatj, which is probably what I'm about to do now. But look, for economic development, we see that is first of all, sustainable employment. We also, for us, it equals freedom from welfare. It also gives us self-determination and independence, because if you don't have economic development in this region and you don't have the funds, it's very hard to get. Trust me, I've been here a very long time and I know how difficult it is. In fact, when I first started, took over from, took the job as CEO of Gumatj Corporation, I had this saying. I went to the cattle farm that we owned out in 100 kilometres out, and we found a cow in the middle of the paddock. And I asked the station manager at the time, what's the cow for? And he said, "Oh, we're building a station." I said, "Yeah, but you've only got one cow." So we've now got 1,000 head, and we export the cattle to Darwin and everything else, and we've got a butcher shop, and we've got an abattoir. So we built it up. And thank you, Mark, for taking everything away from my timber story, and the brickworks, and the cement works, and the buildings, and the housing. But nevertheless, to this date, we've just started, we opened up our new, this is on Friday, 10 brand new houses for our workers and 8 single bed units, which was great. This is for our employees, this is not for anyone else, so that we can offer our employees an immediate house. It also reduces the overburden we have on the houses on the community. And believe it or not, the trickle-down effect is that we get more kids to school. All right, we're getting 5 to 6 people to a house, we've got a 3-bedroom home, and it's starting to work. This will make a huge difference to us. But I'm actually here to talk about something that's called, our New Horizons. Doing something like a housing estate is very costly, as you know. And without the support from PM&C, or now called NIAA, you'd never be able to do this sort of thing. But that doesn't mean they have to do it on their own. That doesn't mean we put out a hand and say we want the funding for it. It means we want joint ventures in it. It means we want employment out of it. We do this by reducing the cost of these houses by building our own trusses. Thank you, Mark. We're cutting our logs, getting our own sawmills together, providing their own concrete, our own blocks. So we've reduced the houses from around 620,000 down to 450. Which means we can build a lot more houses for that. But you've got to think outside that box. Hence, what are we doing now? Okay, well, we've got a bauxite mine, and I'm still smarting about that yesterday. But nevertheless, we've now got to start seeking, how do we develop that? We managed to build a training school. We've managed to get 16 new employees in there on mining, in training. So now we've got to look outside that again. What happens when the bauxite runs out? An example is Rio's resources are running out, and they're running out rapidly. So within 10 years, maybe less, we've got to start looking, well, what can we do in that time? So converting the mine site into timber, forestry, all good. We're going to need water, we're going to need buildings. So what we've done is we've focused on a relationship with Rio Tinto in developing what they can leave that's of value to the traditional people. Yes, there are environmental issues, and we're all working on those environmental issues. In fact, we want to engage in those environmental issues, but that's just more jobs for us. It's long-term sustainability we're looking for. So as it depletes, one area depletes, we look for others that we can expand on. By going around and looking at the ports, the warehousing, we look at that and say, how can we use that in the future? How can we develop those areas without costing us millions to build, but take over the responsibility of them? There is a catch-22. You've got to be very careful not to also catch the liabilities of those if they're not up to standard. But we're working with that with a team. I guess for us, we see it as yes, it's a challenge, but it's an opportunity. As the door shuts, open another one. Don't wait for it to be open. Kick it open, have a look in there. Don't ever say no. People, we joked about here 2 years ago or something, I stood up and said, oh, we'll build a space station. 2 weeks ago, we had NASA here walking in that ground. Now, I know nothing about space, but what I twigged on, if that happens, I've got employment. I've got people on the gates, I've got people in construction, I've got people, I can bring them cement, I can bring them blocks, I can bring them timber. That's sustainable business. Rather than say no, say, well, let's have a look at it. It might work. In a few years, hopefully by the end of next year, and I'm not going to commit to that because I never do, but you may be sitting here and see a launch. Who knows? It won't be me strapped to the end of it, but it will be others. Look, as part of, we're also looking at tourism development and funding. This is secured through a deal the Northern Territory Government, the Australian Government, to develop a big tourist development hub within what we have now, to support cruise ships coming past, to support yachts, to support small ships. Never say no, never just walk away from it. You've got to look for these opportunities, because once they walk, they don't come back. We have got a depletion of people coming here in 10 years, so to the point where we're going to be lucky to run a Garma, because if there's only 1,500 people in the whole of Nhulunbuy, there will only be half of Nhulunbuy. You won't have the resources. So you've got to think outside the box. What can you do? What can you get? And always say, we'll have a go at it. Always say, we'll invest in it ourselves. But you will not do this without the mining company support, without the government support, without federal or state. It doesn't make any difference. You need their support, not just for the cash. You need them to open the doors to the bureaucracy. When we started that mine, do you think it was easy for us to walk up there and say we'd like to open a mine? An Aboriginal company? We nearly got laughed out of the door. But we did it. We did it and we got through, and now we have it operating. I think, you know, regional diversity in what we're trying to do here is so important now that we've developed, whether it be Gumatj, whether it be timber, whether it be building, it doesn't matter, is that the younger people need the support of sustainable work. They don't need a one-hot shot. They need to look at this and say, what can we do to help? What can we do to support? And it's crucial to us to keep going. We're fortunate at the moment, Gumatj is fortunate, that we have the resources and the backing that we've come a long way in that short period of time. We're only talking about 11 years. But in that time, we've got solid bases in, and we don't mind helping other clans and other businesses, but we need to push on. We need to get further than that. Otherwise, it'll be a talk fest. And I really, as most of you know me, I hate talk fests. In fact, I even hate being up here, but I'm here. Anyway, look, I'm not going to keep you going forever. I think the important thing to take away from this, and this group in particular, is that don't think we're not doing anything. We're doing a hell of a lot. But it costs us in resources and it costs us in good people. We scream sometimes for the right people to help us. It's not just the academic side. It can be as simple as just a mechanic. I say simple as a mechanic. I'd love to be a mechanic. But, getting someone to help stay in that community longer than a short-term period of, I'd like to go in Arnhem land for a couple of months. That doesn't cut it. To build relationships takes years. Then you build the trust. And then you start moving on from that. So it's longevity that we need. Sustainability in jobs, longevity in the people. It's what we're looking for. Nothing can be done without education. We're moving up in the world. It's no good me talking to a NASA guy. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But, if we get the young kids now to go to school, to get an education, to build up, they one day will be able to take over those roles. And that's what we want. You need that to be pushed through. It just doesn't... There's not a single identity. It's a multitude of identities that you need. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you anymore. I'm open to questions in a bit. Are we allowed questions?
I think people prefer to.
So we'll get going. Just one thing I'd like to say. I've been here and been on this Garma site for, I think I've done 20 now. I probably don't want to do any more, but I'm still here. The trick is with this is don't walk away with anything. Please engage with your traditional owners. Engage and take something away, even if it's small, even if it's good memories. You may be able to pass it on someone that's influential that'll help, because that's important. Thank you.